They discovered the shocking secret of Peter, what Jesus revealed after his 3 denials. Few knew what truly happened that night. In the shadows of that cold, moonlit courtyard, whispers gripped the air like a tightening noose. Peter, once so bold, sat trembling in the dark, fear etched deep into his features. He had stood proudly at the foot of Jesus, declaring his unwavering loyalty, but now he was unraveling, denying the very man who pulled him from the depths. The night was fraught with tension. The smell of burning wood and warm blood lingered, a foreboding reminder of what was at stake. Outside the gates of Jerusalem, the city held its breath, caught in a fragile balance between chaos and calm. This was the hour of reckoning, an hour that would echo through time. That eye and the flickering torchlight, Peter's hands shook. Was it shame that swallowed him whole? The air crackled with questions. The members of the Sanhedrin watched, their eyes glinting like daggers, ready to pierce through his facade. What would happen if they discovered his betrayal? The weight of the moment pressed down, almost unbearable. How could he have denied Jesus 3 times? Each denial clawed at Peter's heart like a ravenous wolf. Suddenly, a rooster crowed in the distance. That piercing sound shattered the silence, a chilling reminder of his resolve crumbling to dust. He remembered Jesus' words, "Before the rooster crows, you will deny me 3 times." Those words stung deeper than any lash. Was this the end of hope for him? A fleeting cry echoed through the darkness, a witness to his public disgrace. Peter's breath quickened. What if he had lost everything? As he looked into the eyes of those around him, some condemning, some curious, felt the weight of their judgment. They were waiting, gasping for the next act in this unfolding drama. The very essence of his identity felt fragile, slipping through his fingers like grains of sand. Could redemption still be within reach? Would there be forgiveness for a heart so full of denial? The anticipation crackled like electricity. In this moment, a single question ran through Peter's mind, one that held the promise of an answer or the weight of despair. What would Jesus say when their eyes finally met again? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The moon hung high, casting a ghostly glow on the stones of the courtyard. Each step that Peter took felt as heavy as a stone. Yet, amid the encroaching darkness of uncertainty, a flicker of light remained, an ember of hope buried deep within his heart. As he turned to leave the scene of his shame, the churning thoughts within him threatened to consume him whole. What would tomorrow bring? The dawn would unveil a new day, yet for Peter, it felt as if the sun might never rise again. The world around him faded into a blur, and all that mattered was the agony of what he had done. The voices of those who had once stood beside him echoed in his mind, painfully reminding him of their shared resolve. "Who am I?" he whispered to the night, "if I am not faithful?" Somewhere in the distance, the sounds of the city echoed, oaths being exchanged, feet dragging in the dust, but to Peter, all was silence except for the relentless beating of his heart. He found himself wandering aimlessly, retracing steps he had taken with Jesus. The memories flooded back, beautiful moments of faith and deeper understanding. There they were, teaching on the mountainside, sharing bread under the stars, the miraculous catch of fish that had launched him into this unexpected life. But that was before. Now, it felt as if the weight of the world bore down on him, and he was utterly alone. He sought refuge by the shores of the Sea of Galilee, a place of solace and recollection. With weary eyes, he gazed at the waters that once reminded him of the call to follow. Would he even recognize the voice of the one he had betrayed? The night deepened, as insecurities wrapped around him like shrouds, and Peter realized what he feared most was not the judgment of men, but the distance he had created between himself and Jesus. What would the Master say upon their reunion? Would there still be room for a heart riddled with doubt and denial? Would love endure against the backdrop of such treachery? As dawn crept closer, the first hints of light kissed the horizon. Peter sat by the water's edge, remembering the warmth of fellowship, the laughter shared, and the gentle guidance of Jesus. The memories danced like shadows, flickering on the surface, teasing at the edge of resolution. Would the starlit night bring forth a message of forgiveness? Or would it strengthen the chasm one he had worn through his own foolishness? Suddenly, the sound of splashing water startled him from his reverie. The disciples had begun to gather nearby, drawn by an unspoken pull. They spoke softly among themselves, casting furtive glances toward their fallen brother. Guilt gripped Peter as he approached, yearning to bridge the gap between himself and them. He felt like a ghost haunting the remnants of his past, caught between who he had been and who he hoped to be again. As he stood at the water's edge, a thought pierced through the rising sun, illuminating his heart with a question: could any of them, including himself, ever fully understand the depth of grace that awaited in the moments to come? Would redemption find its way to a heart that had become so lost? In the quiet anticipation of that dawn, Peter wondered, was the story of denial merely a precursor to something far greater? The sun rose slowly, casting its gentle light over the Sea of Galilee. As the first rays broke the horizon, the water shimmered like a veil of jewels, awakening the earth from its slumber. Peter, still lost in his thoughts, scarcely noticed the beauty surrounding him. His heart was a tempest, a churning sea of regret and longing. The other disciples had gradually drifted closer, their conversations blending into a soft murmur. There was a palpable sense of hesitance in the air, as if they too were grappling with an unspoken weight. Among them was John, the beloved disciple, whose piercing gaze often searched the souls of those around him. He seemed to sense Peter's turmoil, and for a moment, their eyes met, a flicker of understanding, but also of sorrow. Then, a voice broke through the tranquil morning, echoing from the hillside, stirring the stillness of the dawn. "Children, do you have any fish?" The tone was familiar, yet different, a call as old as the days gone by. Hope ignited in Peter's chest. As he looked up, squinting against the light, through the shimmering air, they saw a figure standing on the shore, silhouetted against the rising sun. It was Jesus, the teacher, the shepherd, the one who had called them each by name. The displacement of emotions caught in Peter's throat. Could it truly be him? Was this the moment of accountability he both dreaded and longed for? The disciples, initially puzzled, responded with a negative shake of their heads. It was then that Jesus instructed them: "Cast the net on the right side of the boat, and you will find some." Obedient to his familiar voice, they followed the command, throwing their net. Almost immediately, it began to swell with the weight of fish, a miraculous catch that overwhelmed their small vessel. Peter's heart raced. This was the moment he had witnessed before, a sign that revealed that Jesus was indeed with them still, though shadows had crept into their relationship. The realization of who stood among them crashed upon Peter like the waves of the sea. "It is the Lord!" John cried out, and without a second thought, the impulsive fisherman jumped into the water, abandoning the boat to swim towards Jesus, his heart a mix of anticipation and dread. As Peter splashed through the water, his mind whirled with memories of laughter and fellowship, the starkness of betrayal gnawing at his insides. Would Jesus ask about the denials? Would he mention the depth of Peter's failure? Or was there perhaps something deeper awaiting discovery? When Peter reached the shore, he saw the fire of coals burning bright, fish placed upon it, and bread laid out, an invitation to eat. Jesus welcomed him with a gaze full of warmth, the kind that cut through the guilt like a knife through cloth. There were no words yet, just a powerful acknowledgement of their connection that had neither broken nor faltered. Even in the depths of Peter's despair, the other disciples joined them, and they shared a meal together, for in that moment, food became a ministry of reconciliation. As they broke bread, the atmosphere shifted, and Peter became acutely aware of the weight of the unspoken question lingering in the air. The time for confrontation was edging near. After the meal, Jesus turned his gaze toward Peter, and the world fell silent. Only the sound of waves lapping the shore remained. "Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these?" The question pierced the heart of Peter, and he felt the layer of regret begin to peel back under the light of inquiry. "Lord, you know that I love you," he responded, yet the weight of each word felt heavy. tinged with the memory of his past denials. Jesus smiled gently, the corners of his mouth lifting, yet Peter could sense the profound gravity of the moment. "Feed my lambs," Jesus instructed, and with those words, a purpose sparked anew within Peter, but this was only the beginning. Even as joy began to stir within him, Peter felt a gnawing anxiety. Would Jesus continue, peeling back more layers of his heart, revealing the magnitude of grace yet unknown to him, as Jesus repeated the question too? More times, each affirmation saturated with significance, Peter's heart filled with more questions than answers. With each response came a call to action, an invitation to shepherd and lead, but also the echo of his past failures, the resounding truth that his journey of restoration was not yet complete. That in that sacred space, surrounded by the smell of fish and the light of a new dawn, Peter pondered, could he truly understand the depth of this grace? Would new purpose wash over the failures of yesterday, or would the weight of his past continue to linger like an unshakable shadow? As the sun climbed higher, the morning colors began to shift, lending a golden glow to the land. The air filled with the rich aroma of cooking fish, mingling with the salty breeze from the Sea of Galilee. Jesus sat among his friends, the atmosphere charged with unspoken feelings as they resumed the conversation. "Simon, son of John," Jesus began again, his tone gentle yet firm, "do you love me?" The word struck Peter anew, echoing in his heart as if they were being carved into his very soul. Each time his master had asked, it felt like he was peeling back a layer of Peter's deepest doubts, revealing a wounded heart yearning for healing. "That I do," Peter replied, his voice breaking slightly. The admission was no longer merely a response, it was a pledge soaked in sincerity, a desire for reconnection that ran deeper than the sea that lay before them. He could hear the murmurs of the other disciples, they felt the weight of the moment, too. This was a healing, yet it was also an unveiling. What were the repercussions of this exchange? Would it change Peter forever, or were there more lessons hidden beneath the surface of forgiveness? Jesus straightened, his eyes meeting Peter's, sparkling with an understanding that transcended earthly comprehension. "Tend my sheep," he instructed with a soft command, each word a call to action. And in that sacred exchange, Peter felt a profound truth begin to cascade over him, a realization of his own worth, despite the shadows of betrayal clinging to him. Yet even as the warmth of purpose flooded his spirit, a fear took root. What kind of shepherd could he be? Could he lead with a heart so marred by his past? Swallowing hard, he replayed the moments leading up to his denials, the fear, the pressure, the falter of faith. He had always seen himself as a vessel of strength among his brethren, but now he felt shattered, and the pieces were only beginning to come together. Then Jesus probed deeper still, "Peter, do you love me?" This question hung heavy, pregnant with expectation. Peter felt as though the Master was reaching into the crevices of his very being, requiring transparency. "Lord, you know all things, you know that I love you." In his answer, Peter acknowledged not only his affection but the omniscience of Jesus. He knew the truth even when Peter himself wished to hide it. The moment deepened, and the weight of responsibility settled upon Peter's shoulders. Jesus responded one last time with a command that would mark a turning point for him. "Feed my sheep." The simplicity of the words belied their significance. They contained both a purpose and a burden, and Peter understood, he was not merely to care for the flock but to lead them with the compassion he had learned through his own journey of restoration. Yet as Peter listened, uncertainties gnawed at him. Would he be able to rise to this great calling? Would the other disciples accept him as leader, given his failings? And what would it mean to truly feed others after he had been so close to letting go of all that Jesus had offered? The other disciples were silent, captivated by the dialogue unfolding before them. They sensed the trembling balance of mercy and responsibility resting in Peter's heart, and they too were transformed in witnessing this powerful act of grace. As the sun illuminated the rippling waters, Peter gazed at the horizon, a symbol of hope beyond what he could see. In that moment of intense communion with Jesus, the larger purpose of his journey began to dawn on him. Yet the shadow of doubt remained, hovering like a cloud waiting to disperse in the sun's brilliance. Peter's heart wrestled with questions that remained unanswered. How could he truly lead when he had stumbled? What if the shadows of his past returned to haunt him? Was the grace pouring over him real enough to wash away the remnants of his betrayal? Each thought spiraled into another, a cycle of confusion wrapped in a new sense of calling, and thus, the disciples lingered beside the fire, the air thick with anticipation and unspoken fears as they awaited what the future would hold. In this moment of shared vulnerability, a profound question lingered in Peter's mind, echoing in the silent depths of his spirit. Was he ready to embrace the fullness of grace and redefine what it meant to be a shepherd in a world that had once thirsted for his denial? As the sun began its slow descent beyond the horizon, casting a warm amber hue over the waters, the disciples gathered closer around the fire, their faces illuminated by the flickering flames. The scent of fish lingered, but it was overshadowed by the heavy air of expectation and introspection. Peter's heart raced, a blend of resolve and trepidation swelling within him. "Lord," he said, finding the courage to break the silence, "how can I be a shepherd? I have wandered too far from the path you set before me." The rawness of his vulnerability echoed like a stone cast into still water, sending ripples through the minds and hearts of those present. Jesus looked at Peter, his expression a fusion of understanding and love. "It is not the wanderer who defines the shepherd, but the journey back home," he replied gently, that familiar spark in his eyes bringing a sense of peace. "Every sheep has its own path of straying, but they all seek the same shepherd." The other disciples listened intently, feeling each word carve into their own doubts and fears. Thomas pondered his own moments of skepticism, reflecting on how often he had longed for proof amidst the uncertainty, wondering whether he too would falter in faith. Meanwhile, John, ever attuned to the heart of things, exchanged knowing glances with James, sharing an unspoken understanding of their collective journeys. "But Master," Peter pressed on, desperation edging his voice, "my mistakes they loom like shadows behind me. Will they not chase me? Will the flock trust a shepherd with the scent of denial upon him?" Each word trembled, his heart opened before the firelight, a flickering flame of hope battling against the darkness of his past. Jesus leaned closer, his voice a soothing balm. "Peter, it is in recognizing your frailty that you find your strength. The world knows not of the heart transformed by grace but only the fragments left behind. It is your scars that will tell the tale of redemption, not your failures alone." There was a hush, as each disciple contemplated their own scars. Matthew, who once collected taxes, felt the weight of his own transformation, while the zealot Simon wrestled with his past passions turned to peace. They all shared a bond woven from the threads of doubt, discovery, and the longing for forgiveness that echoed deep within. "Consider this," Jesus continued, a light of inspiration shining forth. "What if the very flaws you think disqualify you are the ones that draw others near? Your heart once battered by Furno awakened by love, can lead others just as it was led back to me. Together, you shall shepherd not only with authority but with grace." Peter felt the swell of emotion rising in his chest, a tentative flicker of hope igniting. "But what if they do not recognize the change in me?" he breathed, wrestling with vulnerability that had begun to feel less burdensome yet still daunting. "Ah, that is the secret of love," replied Jesus, his voice like the gentle ripple of the sea beneath them. "It asks not for perfection but for authenticity. Your true calling is not hidden in how people see you but in how you live out that love before them. Feed my sheep, Peter, with your very life. They will follow, not because of your authority, but because they sense the well from which you draw your strength." Inspired by those words, the disciples exchanged glances filled with renewed purpose. The shadows of their pasts, once daunting specters, began to lose their grip. Yet, a question still lingered in the air, much like the faint scent of smoke that wafted from the fire. Would the world truly be ready for a shepherd shaped by scars? Was there enough grace to redefine their identities beyond betrayal and doubt? And, more intimately, could they rally together in vulnerability to guide and lift one another as true shepherds of their shared calling? The night deepened, and as the stars began to pepper the dark canvas of the sky, the disciples whispered their hopes aloud, filling the silence with voices echoing not only the fears that haunted them but the promise of transformation yet to unfold. As the stars twinkled like diamonds scattered across the velvet sky, the fire continued to crackle, its glow a warm embrace against the cool night air. The disciples leaned in, both physically and spiritually, hungry for the insight that Jesus promised. Their hearts beat as only collective longing for understanding amidst their fluctuating hope. Peter's brow furrowed, the weight of his past drawing down like an anchor. Lord, if I am to shepherd your flock, I must learn how not to stumble again. His voice was barely a whisper, marred by the fear of failure. The echoes of his 3 denials resounded like distant thunder. Jesus let the silence stretch, allowing the weight of Peter's words to settle among them. It was a moment heavy with the possibility of revelation. The disciples exchanged uncertain glances, the air thick with anticipation. They, too, felt the bittersweet sting of their incomplete journeys. Peter, Jesus began, his tone soft yet firm, to shepherd is not merely to guide but to embrace transparency. Your scars are the markings of your journey back home, and they hold stories that are intricately woven with hope. It is in the unveiling of our true selves that we find strength, not in the guise of perfection. Confusion creased Peter's face. But my heart bears the shame of betrayal. How can I reveal that to the ones I wish to lead? With a gentle gaze, Jesus responded, betrayal is a part of the narrative, just as redemption is. You see, my dear friend, it is within the paradox of our struggles and our victories that the divine message unfolds. Each denial was a stepping stone, leading you to a deeper understanding of love's essence. The flames of the fire flickered as if dancing to the rhythm of Jesus' words. John leaned forward, intrigued. Could it be, he pondered aloud, that our wounds are not burdens but bridges? Bridges to understanding and connection with those who wander lost? Indeed, Jesus nodded, a hint of a smile breaking through. Each experience has shaped you, and it is through your openness that others will find healing. Tell the story of your heart, Peter, for therein lies a truth that will resonate with all who yearn for grace. The gathering was aglow with possibility, though doubt still whispered in the corners of their minds. James, ever the pragmatic one, spoke up, but what if our truth isn't received? What if the world chooses to judge our past rather than seeing the light we now carry? Jesus exhaled softly, acknowledging the fear present in each heart. Ah, my children, the response of the world is not within your control. You are not merely responsible for how your words are received but for the authenticity with which you speak them. Your journeys will bring forth a profound intimacy of understanding, a vulnerability that is rare in a world thirsting for genuine connection. The disciples absorbed his wisdom, realizing the armor they had built around themselves had only served to isolate them further. The rawness of their individual stories held the potential for unity, to gather others who had wandered into darkness. Peter's voice trembled with emerging courage. Then what shall I do first, Lord? How do I begin this journey of leading with my scars? Start within, Jesus replied, placing a hand gently on Peter's shoulder. Embrace each fragment of your story, for it is through your own healing that you will guide others. You will feed my sheep not only with words but through your willingness to stand in the light, fully aware of your past and unafraid to showcase your heart's journey. That a flicker of hope ignited in Peter's heart, yet uncertainty loomed large. What if the shepherd's path was riddled with new challenges, ones that were scarier than the echo of denial? And still, a question washed over his spirit like the tide. Could the act of sharing one's imperfections truly spark a transformation in the hearts of those who had lost their way? As the night deepened, the disciples lingered in this sacred moment, a collective breath held in anticipation. They were beginning to feel the contours of a new calling, yet the mystery of how to step forward remained tangled with their fears, leaving them at the edge of the unknown. What awaited them on this shared journey of brokenness and redemption? As the stars continued their silent vigil and the fire crackled with gentle reassurance, the disciples sat deeply engrossed in their thoughts. The warmth that emanated from the flames mirrored the flicker of newfound determination within Peter's heart, yet the uncertainty of the path ahead loomed large. With a sudden seriousness, Jesus broke through the essence of contemplation. Let me share with you a secret that has been woven into the very fabric of your existence. It is not only through the trials you face that you come to know me, but it is also through the trials of one another. What I've done and will do is not only for the one but for the many, and therein lies your purpose. But Lord, how can we grasp this deep truth? Asked Matthew, his brow knitted in curiosity. Our understanding is like a candle flickering in the wind, barely illuminating the shadows of our doubts. Jesus smiled gently, sensing their desire for clarity amidst the chaos of their fears. Think of the parable of the lost sheep. Each one of you carries a fragment of someone's heart lost, broken, or yearning for direction. The secret you seek is not just to share your story, but to recognize that your scars mirror the scars of others. By embracing your own, you give them permission to reveal theirs. The weight of Jesus' words relaxed the tension in the air. The disciples exchanged glances, beginning to comprehend the profound interconnection of human experience. So, my faults and failures can illuminate the path for others? Peter murmured, still wrestling with the enormity of what was being asked of him. Exactly, Jesus replied with certainty. In your vulnerability, in your openness, you speak to the very core of the human condition. Each of you knows what it feels like to wander, and in that shared understanding, you forge bonds that transcend mere words. John, whose heart had been kindled by the implications of such a reality, interjected, then our journey together must start with listening. We must hear not only the words of the broken but begin to hear the silent cries of the lost amongst us. Listening, yes, Jesus affirmed, but also engaging compassionately. For in acknowledging the struggles of others, you engage more profoundly with your own. It is in the act of looking into another's eyes that you see your a reflection that resonates with humanity's quest for redemption. As the fire embers danced upward, the disciples felt the urgency of their calling settle upon them like a cloak. They were not simply to hold their truths tightly but were tasked with weaving them into a tapestry that encompassed their community. Peter's chest rose with a newfound boldness. And what if we falter? What if our attempts at connection lead to misunderstanding or rejection? Ah, beloved Peter, Jesus responded with a knowing look, remember, grace is not bound by your fears of acceptance. It is a seed planted in the soil of honesty. If you share openly, regardless of the reception, you sow possibility. You may not see the fruit of your efforts immediately, but know that transformation often occurs in the unseen. The disciples pondered the weight of this wisdom. They understood that their paths might be lined with challenges yet to be faced, but a dawning realization began to take root in their hearts. Reflective of their individual narratives, perhaps there lay a collective power unimagined potential to embrace vulnerability as a source of resilience. As the night wore on, the prospect of leading with their scars transformed from a cause of fear to a point of connection. The flame of determination began to light their spirits, yet within that warm embrace of possibility lay a trembling uncertainty. Would they be brave enough to unveil not just their stories but the complexities of their journeys? In the solitude of the night, a new question took shape: how could they bear witness to each other's scars and cultivate an authentic space for healing amidst a world that often shunned vulnerability? As dawn crept over the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and gold, the disciples awakened, enveloped in the comfortable silence of the early morning. The fire had long since dwindled, but the warmth of Jesus' words lingered in their hearts, igniting a spark of hope within each of them. Yet amidst this anticipation, Peter felt the weight of an unresolved conflict gnawing at him. He sat apart from the others, his brow furrowed in thought, reflecting on the recent moments of his life that were marked by shame and regret. The memory of his 3 denials loomed like a shadow, a scar that threatened to overshadow the light he yearned to embody. Jesus, sensing Peter's turmoil, approached him, seated quietly beside him. "Peter," he spoke softly, "what troubles your spirit?" Peter looked down, his voice barely a whisper. "Lord, I feel the burden of my past, the times I turned away when you needed me the most. How can I lead others to trust in the light when I myself falter in the darkness?" Jesus listened intently, allowing Peter to lay bare the fears in his heart. "Your scars do not disqualify you, Peter. They offer an authenticity that many will find solace in, a shared experience that reveals the depth of my love." The sun's first rays illuminated the ground around them, casting a soft glow. As Jesus continued, his tone was gentle yet insistent. "Remember, upon your confession, I named you Peter, the rock upon which I will build my church. Your strength does not lie in perfection, but in redemption. Though you may stumble, the grace that will arise from your journey is what will inspire others to find their own way back." Tears welled in Peter's eyes, and he felt a stirring within him, a hope that perhaps his failures could be a cornerstone rather than a stumbling block. He cast his gaze toward the sea, the waves crashing in a rhythm that echoed the pulse of his own heart. "Teach me, Lord," Peter continued, his resolve strengthening, "to turn this shame into strength. How do I become a vessel for your grace, a reflection of your love?" "By living in truth," Jesus replied, his voice unwavering. "The anguish you carry can become your testimony. Acknowledge your journey, embrace your mistakes, and let them guide you to deeper compassion. Your vulnerability will invite others to walk alongside you in their darkness, illuminating paths toward healing. Across the shore, the other disciples were beginning to gather, able to witness the transformation within Peter. Thaddeus joined them, curious about the private exchange, a look of concern etched on his features. What secrets have you whispered to one another on this dawn? Is it not a time for us all to unite in the strength of our shared understanding? Jesus smiled at this inquiry, as if it echoed deeper truths from the hearts of all present. Indeed, the shadows of doubt each of you carry can be the catalyst for profound connection. Every story of struggle can intertwine with another, crafting a shared narrative rich with meaning. And each moment of vulnerability is an invitation to others, to extend their hands and say, "Me too." As the disciples shared in a collective moment of realization, a question hung in the air like the morning mist. How might their individual stories of brokenness weave together to establish a foundation of trust that could bring profound change, not only among themselves but also to the world that hovered on the brink of despair? As the sun climbed higher in the sky, casting its warm light on the gathering of disciples, curiosity bubbled amongst them. Each of them felt the urge to dive deeper into the conversation they had just witnessed, eager to comprehend the profound truths hinted at by Jesus. And Peter, James, his brow knitted in thought, ventured closer. "Lord, do you speak of our scars as a means to foster healing? Is it not counterintuitive to think that our wounds could be the pathway to our strength?" Jesus nodded thoughtfully, his eyes reflecting a profound wisdom. It is often in the places we feel most vulnerable that the richest harvest of faith can be sown. Look at Peter, his denials create a raw and honest narrative. From that place of vulnerability, he shall draw others who feel unworthy, unredeemed. Bartholomew, ever inquisitive, leaned in. But what of the burden Peter carries? Can he embrace his past without being swallowed by regrets? How can one navigate the ongoing pain of failure? The burden he bears is indeed heavy, yet it is not meant to crush him, Jesus replied, his gaze sweeping over the group, drawing them in. The weight of his past can serve as a compass, guiding him toward humility. When one finds meaning in their suffering, they transform into beacons for others. Remember, my own journey through suffering paved the path of salvation. It is the embrace of our brokenness that can ignite the flames of hope. Peter, now standing, felt the warmth of Jesus' words settle over him, like a comforting cloak. Yet an ember of uncertainty lingered in his heart. "But Lord, what if my past failures prove too great a barrier for others to trust me? If I falter again, they may see me not as a rock but as shifting sand." Trust, Peter, is not built on perfection but on authenticity, Jesus encouraged. A leader who shows their own struggles brings forth authenticity, inviting those in the depths of despair to join in honest communion. You will lead with grace when you reveal not just strength, but also your willingness to seek redemption. Mary Magdalene, who had listened from the edge of the group, added, "But what if there are those who only seek to cast judgment, who may turn our stories of vulnerability into opportunities for mockery?" Jesus' expression deepened. Yes, there will always be those who choose to walk in darkness rather than light. Yet, there is power in community. In the unity of your narratives, you'll create a fortress against isolation. As you share your truths, you will gather others, those who understand your struggles and wish to emerge from their own shadows alongside you. A sudden hush fell over the group, as they began to contemplate the depth of what had been shared. The ocean's gentle waves, which had been a backdrop to their conversations, suddenly felt alive with meaning, a continuous rhythm that echoed their hearts and aspirations. "Lord, as we prepare to go forth, what is the first step we must take to connect our stories?" crucially asked John, the youngest among them, his voice steady, yet tinged with anticipation. Jesus smiled, knowing the moment of revelation was upon them. "Begin by simply sharing. Speak openly with one another. In doing so, you will not only lift the burden of silence but also find common ground in your shared experiences. Each story told is a brick laid in the foundation of unity. When you gather in authenticity, the light of hope will pierce through the darkest of nights. As the sun now reached its zenith, casting long shadows across the beach, a profound question seemed to linger in the air. What stories would they share with each other, and who among them would find the courage to be the first to step into the light of vulnerability? As the days passed, the shore of the Sea of Galilee transformed into a sacred ground where the disciples gathered, sharing their truths in a circle of trust forged by the love of Jesus. Each shared story became a thread, weaving a tapestry of vulnerability and grace. They listened intently, their hearts beating in unison as they bore witness to one another's scars. Peter spoke first, allowing the weight of his denial to spill forth in raw honesty. "I silenced the truth when fear gripped my heart, and in that moment, I lost sight of who I was meant to be." His voice trembled, yet each admission felt like a release, shedding layers of shame that no longer held dominion over him. The others responded with their own confessions. Thomas, who once hid behind skepticism, admitted, "I let doubt cloud my vision, preventing me from seeing the miracles that surrounded me." As he spoke, he felt the chains of skepticism slip away, replaced by a newfound courage to embrace belief. Matthew shared his struggles with acceptance, recalling moments in his tax booth when he felt utterly alone. "My past was a prison, a place of isolation. But in sharing this burden with you, I feel glimpses of liberty." What began as stories of shame transformed into proclamations of strength, each testimony echoing the transformative power of grace. Mary Magdalene nodded, her voice strong and unwavering. "We are each more than our past, we are the sum of our encounters with love. With every confession, I feel free to embrace my true identity, one shaped by hope, not history." As they spoke, the atmosphere thickened with a palpable presence, an undeniable spirit weaving through their words. They began to see not only their individual trials but the shared human experience where shame and grace coexisted, clashing yet harmonizing in a beautiful dichotomy reflective of their Master's love. In those moments of honesty, Peter felt something shift within him. The fabric of his insecurities, once woven tightly around his heart, began to unravel, replaced by threads of affirmation. For each confession spoken, Peter found a mirror, a reflection of his journey, illuminating the humanity they all shared. One day, as they gathered once more, Jesus approached them, his presence radiating warmth and acceptance. "You have delved deep into the essence of what it means to be a shepherd. Today, I call you to bear witness not only to your stories but to the greatest story that has yet to unfold." "What do you mean, Master?" Peter asked, curiosity sparkling in his eyes. "Your vulnerability is powerful, but it is in the sharing of this message that true transformation takes place," Jesus said. "You must venture out into the world and proclaim the hope you have found, for there are many who walk in darkness, longing for a glimpse of light." With those words, a new purpose ignited within each disciple. They began to dream of what it would mean to carry their stories into the world, to share their journeys of brokenness and redemption with those who felt lost. The same grace that had been extended to them now demanded action, a call to embrace the beauty of collective vulnerability and lead others toward the hope they discovered in Jesus, and thus, they set into motion a mission that would reach beyond the confines of the shore, spreading the transformative power of love far and wide. Each disciple, empowered by their scars, began to speak not just of their own stories, but of the greater story, the one that illustrated how love conquered hate, light shattered darkness, and grace breathed life into the lifeless. Months passed, and they traveled from town to town, sharing both laughter and tears, extending hands of fellowship to those who felt alienated and afraid. In their gatherings, they created spaces for healing, allowing others to voice their struggles while illustrating that grace was available to all, even in the deepest darkness. And throughout this journey, Peter began to understand an important truth: he was not defined by his past failures. Rather, it was the sincerity of his journey that drew others near, as they saw within him a reflection of their own battles. No longer did he stumble in fear, instead, he stood firm on the foundation built upon shared scars and the love of their Savior. As they continued their travels, news of their encounters began to ripple through communities. A movement sprung forth, ignited by the power of vulnerability and authentic connection. The heart of the message was simple yet profound: you are worthy of grace, and in your weaknesses lies your strength. As the sun lowered over the horizon one evening, bathing the disciples in a golden glow, Peter took a moment to reflect on the incredible transformation he and his companions had undergone. Their journey of sharing not only redefined their identities but transformed others as well. With his heart wide open, he looked around at his friends, sat the faces that mirrored his own struggles, and he smiled. "You're still the rock," Jesus whispered to him in his spirit, and together, you shall build a foundation of love that shall not be shaken. In that moment, Peter realized the powerful revelation that echoed beyond their individual stories. Grace, when embraced and shared, becomes a conduit for the healing of many. They had become living epistles, a testament to the unyielding love found in Christ, and so, with hearts intertwined in purpose, the disciples moved forward, leaving behind a trail of hope, encouraging others to step into the light. They had become beacons, reflecting the eternal truth that in the interplay of shadows and light, grace abounds, and love conquers all fear, and as the world awaited their message, they knew the journey had just begun, for when hearts unite in truth, nothing is impossible. The legacy of their vulnerability would ripple through generations, a testament that indeed, while individual paths may stray, together they could always find their way back home.